this thing.
All right, I think it's close enough. 10 o'clock.
Close enough for this board.
Quarters in session. February 3rd, 2021, we're in session for our working part of the agenda. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
You learned something.
I think you see it.
I move to approve the minutes of the Harney County Court meeting of January 20th, 2021. I second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the January 20th county court minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opportunity for public comment. Who's going to be open? Phone line, in case there's anybody calling in.
Welcome to AT&T's teleconference service. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign. To join the conference as the host, press star. Otherwise, please enter your host password, followed by the sign. Your host password was not recognized. Please re-enter your host password, followed by the pound sign. There are one participant on the call,
It'll just be
including
that
you.
then.
You are joining your conference as the host. For a menu of available commands, press star pound.
Okay. So nobody on the line, any public comment in the room, other than being on the agenda. All right. Item D is old business. We're gonna go ahead and move that down after new business, just so we can keep you guys short of time. You can get back to your daily grind. So item number 1 under new business is court order Paradise Road to County Road Maintenance Program. In our packets, we have a letter from Road Supervisor Shella and his recommendations for that.
Is there anything besides what's in the letter?
No, I just think the main thing is that we're through this process, we are recognizing that it is a public access road that was dedicated to the public at the time that it was surveyed and platted. And through the requirements from that ORS, we, or you as a county court, can accept this road to put expenditures to it. And that makes it legal to do that. We are not accepting it basically into our road system. I think you need to take that to the next level through different processes, the way I understand that with legal counsel. So I was trying to make this as quick and easy as possible, and I think it meets all of those to make both parties happy. I guess if that makes sense. I mean, we're not accepting it into the road system. We're just acknowledging that through those criteria, when this road was established, it's a public access road, and I recommend that we allow this and acknowledge that so we can put expenditures to it. And I think in good faith, these people that live on this road have, taken it to the next step as putting, expenses towards it, maintaining it, and it's not just you know, a road that was slapped together. It's been there, and we're just taking the next step. If that makes sense.
We brought it up to the county's standards.
Yep,
We kept care of it.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So then, after this occurs, we would need to take it to Dominic.
I don't think you need to. I think that, you know, the main focus of this is to, number one, have snow removal, number one, to maintenance blade it. If we need to, you know, for some reason add material to it, we can do it. I think it meets all the criteria that they're asking for. And I don't think we need to.
Dominic.
Now, right, and again, I'm, you know, through legal counsel, that's why I'm making this, you know, I guess, said, is that we're not accepting it into the road system, and it's not to say that we can't at some point in time, if that benefits both parties. You know, 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, you know, down the road. For some reason, it's brought to our attention and we need to bring it into the road system, then we can do that next step. But I think at this point in time, to make everybody agreeable and you know, accomplish what we need to, we just need to acknowledge that it's a public access road. And through your you know, approval of this today, we can legally put expenses towards it.
Are there some other roads in the same situation that just? the people-
There's probably other roads that are actually public access roads, but they haven't been brought to county standards. So again, that's why I'm making this statement. I don't want to open this up to and again, we're not against doing this. It's just that I don't want to open this up to a big, you know, to-do of, oh yeah, my road is. Well, again, you have to bring it to county standards before we can actually even consider it.
And even then, at that time, for consideration of bringing any of these types of roads into the county road system, as you just said, you'd look at how it benefits
Yes.
both parties,
Yes.
and you have a certain
Yeah.
budget.
That's exactly right. And again, I mean, if you look at, you know, not only the criteria that it meets the ORS that's stated in there, you know, look at the other considerations, like I said. Number one, they brought it to standards. And, you know, the other thing is the amount of people that it affects in a short distance. You know, if you had a 5-mile stretch and it, you know, took care of 2 people at the very end, okay, well, that would be a criteria where we look at where you have multiple residents in 0.3 of a mile. So, again, I think you know, every case is gonna be different down the road.
Well, I think that important in this one was that the plat also created the public.
Yes, that's exactly
Puts
right.
us
It's
down
been
to
surveyed,
a
it's
little
been
different.
platted, there's an easement, and it's, you know, and there's a lot of roads out there that would say, okay, yeah, it's a public access road, but number one, has it been surveyed? Number two, has it been dedicated to the public in a correct way? And there's a lot of them out there that haven't.
I'm satisfied with the recommendation and the wording of the court order. So therefore, I would move to approve the court order in the matter of authorizing county maintenance program for Paradise Road.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the court order in the matter of authorizing county maintenance road program for Paradise Road. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Right?
Aye. Any opposed? Order carries. It is all.
Well,
that-
thank you,
that all-
Judge Pete, and thank you, Commissioner Sheldon and Dora, just for your information. We put thousands of dollars in that road to keep it and bring it to where it is today. And we've done it right, so there's no question. And I think Eric's been out looking at it, although he would probably disagree with me a little bit, but that's okay.
I just hope for the neighbors, it's a lot easier to live with
No, no, there'll always be issues. Everybody understands that. That's why 4 of the best of us are here. No, I'm teasing. They're all good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sharing the same thing.
Did everybody
Very
sign,
much.
everybody signed in?
Yes, I think so.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. You guys later.
See ya.
Next conference is going on, so that's why he's not here. That's why we're recording. All right. Item 2, Jim.
I didn't put anything, I did press some stuff. I figured I'd take advantage, I haven't done a season annual report. Here, I should do that one, so. I know kind of the changes to the weed department is the agenda, but every year I do this. I'm just terrible about getting in front of you folks and presenting it. So this is just kind of a snapshot, and it's a very high level overview of what the department did last year. I know it's kind of a side department you guys don't necessarily dive into all the time like roads. So anyway, the past year's been a challenge, like all departments because of COVID. But the nice thing about the weed department is we are very independent and remote, so it doesn't affect us nearly as much as some of the other departments. This year we did have 2 employees retire, 2 long-term employees retire. Ernie Starbuck has been running our road shoulders for, I don't know, 20 years.
Or more, long time.
And then Bob Wassup has been our crew lead on the strategic weed attack team for about a decade. They both retired this year, so good on them, bad for me. I congratulate them for it, but we're definitely going to miss them going forward, trying to replace them. Well, actually, Ernie, the goal is to not replace. I will pick up those duties and not replace. That's my goal. Working with Eric, I think I can do that. And it just save us some money. Once again, we ran a 4-person, it's called a strategic weed attack team. I didn't name it, but I don't dislike it. SWAT. It's our interagency crew that does almost all of our contracts and agreement work for our federal partners and state partners. We ran that again this year. We did lose one in late August. He needs to return to school, which kind of put my other guys at a lot of time. They still had a lot of work to do. Anyway, below that is kind of a bullet point. We treated about 611 acres of right-of-way. That's that 8-foot shoulder spray that we do. It's mostly for drainage and that kind of stuff on our paved roads and some of our targeted gravel roads that Eric kind of points me to. Spot sprayed about 71.5 acres. That's more of a targeted treatment. It's not the boom spraying. I'm actually taking the hand one and I'm just spraying noxious weeds along the county roads out to typically the private fence line, unless the private fence line is like 100 yards away. We go off of the county right of way, but if I just can't go, if it's a 12-foot right of way and 13 feet there's weeds in the end, and it's still on this side of the fence, I'm gonna go get it. It's silly to leave that strip, even though it's 1 foot. If it's over on a private fence, I typically do not do that unless I have a very good relationship with that private landowner, because that can get us in big trouble. We don't do that. We treated 613 acres of BLM. It's still our biggest partner by far. Most of those acres are annual grass. We do a lot of roadside, like annual grass boom treatments on their roads, on little roads, like the Kiger Scenic and the Steens Loop, and we do a lot of boom spraying for those guys. And then we do the same thing, targeted noxious weed spraying for those guys. I'm out here in the Ochiko, which is kind of new and exciting to us anyway. We did 34.5 acres on them. Most of that, again, was annual grass boom treatments, but we did run every open road. And we get permission to run some of the closed roads and survey and treat all noxious weeds on the forest up there. That's actually pretty new and it's pretty cool. They've always been the partner we could never get before. The last few years they really stepped up, and this year they stepped up again. And they added another $5,000 or $6,000 worth next year money. So it's a growing program, which is exciting.
So who do you work with in the Forest Service on that?
Lisa Foster used to be then. Lisa Foster is her name. She's the botanist, except for the BLM, and we'll see now, but typically it's the botanist in the departments that we work. yeah, that's who we work with, through those guys. And then on the Malheur National Refuge, this one's another one that's just kind of neat. We had it and it was exciting, and then the whole thing happened out there, and we lost it for a couple of years, and now we're getting it back, and it's very much growing too. We treated about 41 acres on the refuge, almost entirely pepperweed, and it's very targeted treatments, like around the P Ranch and on the trails out there and around public access parking lots. So, which is good, I think, very good stuff. Keep those weeds knocked down, those public access points. But we also we have a very nice program with those guys doing Russian olive removals, where we actually take chainsaws, cut them down, and then we spray full strength around on the stump just to make sure that there's no regrowth on that stump. And they did from the headquarters, if you can visit from the headquarters all the way to 205 and just beyond, south of the county road there. They did all those fields this year across there, and removed all except for 6, because they have bird nests in them. We're not allowed to remove them. There was 6 of them had bird nests, so maybe next year they won't. And we'll get them. But we had to leave 6 of them, but they removed a whole bunch of them. We also did some nesting improvement project, which is brand new this year, where we did help them do some cattail treatments. So the biggest thing there is they don't have a licensed applicator, so they use us for our expertise and our license, and then it's their equipment. We just go with them to provide the legal standard where they have to have a license to apply this stuff. And I think that's going to grow a lot going forward. It's pretty cool. We actually go up there and ride around their big track swamp thing. They have a spray deal in the back. My guys love it. Essentially, they're just passengers. They get to ride around out there, and then do the mixing, of course, for the spray. African rue, that's a never-ending struggle for the county. It probably will be unless we come up with some really great way to deal with it, or a whole bunch of water. If we got a whole bunch of water, that would do it too. But we were actually up. We did 9.5 acres. The last couple of years, it's been around 6. I think it's just a fluke. There are years where weeds express themselves more. Sometimes we have big pepperweed years or sarsaparilla years. I think that's what this is, but we'll see. One of the problems, the challenges we're going to have in 21 is the state weed board does not have any grant program this year. They got cut through the COVID. It's 100% funded by lottery, and lottery got hammered, so they cut the state weed board grant funds. Everything we're being told now is it's a 1-year thing. They're gearing up for funding for next year, so it's not a long term. But we got to get through this year. So I'm working with the state, so they kind of doesn't absorb all those costs. We've always partnered with those guys to try to figure out a different way other than grants to share those costs to deal with the African rue. It's about $10,000 a year we spend on it. So even if it's having one of their people come out and help, to cut my time in half, something. But they're more than willing to help us get through this 1 year. They'll give us our grants back. I know they will. It's a weed that we only have. There's one other teeny tiny site in North Central Oregon, but really we're the only one that have it in the state. So the state is very, very interested in this weed.
And who do you work with through the state on that?
Bonnie Rasmussen is our rep for OEA. But yeah. Yellow star thistle. So we've always kind of avoided this. We've had a couple here or there, but yellow star thistle, I don't know if you've ever been to the Hell's Canyon, anywhere in northeast Oregon, it is like Medusa head with huge thorns. It will lay a mat out and destroy everything, and it's got thorns that are 2-3 inches long. We found a site just south of Buchanan. Actually, DSL did, Department of State Lands. They have some land out there. When Randy Weiss, the manager, went out and looked at that, he said 3 or 4 plants. And he called me up and asked me to look at it, so I drove out there, and it ended up being, 9 acres that we sprayed out there. It was a lot more than 3 or 4 plants. But we sprayed it aggressively. It's almost entirely on DSL. It's an odd thing. They have pivots. I didn't realize the Department of State Land owned pivots, but they have pivots, and 3 of the pivots are adjacent right there. Most of it's on their pivot corners, and then there's one private pivot corner that's also affected. And we're working with that private landowner. The nice thing is that private landowner is also the lease, the appropriate term for the other ones. So he's the DSL has a lot of leverage to make sure that he treats those. We do not want this weed. It's very close to the stinking waters. If it got on the stinking waters, we would love to have Medusa versus this thing. It would absolutely wreck it. I did one hunting trip in the Northeast, I've not been up there, or Northwest Oregon, or East Oregon, pardon me. And it is everything they say, it is god awful. It is just like Medusa Head, but you can't sit, walk, do anything in it, it's terrible. But anyway, we will work with DSL going forward. We sent out letters to everybody out there, all the adjacent landowners. We actually printed out a bunch of copies and gave them to Jeff Thorough. He went and handed them to people that maybe didn't get them through mail and posted them in Crane in different locations. Tried to get the word out that be on the lookout for this weed. If you see it, we will go treat this. Between us and the state, we will definitely attack this thing because we can't let it escape.
And do you feel the treatment's going to be effective with it, or is it?
Yes, I mean, typically we don't use, and I put it in there, our goal is eradication. You have a couple options. One of them is called Thordon. It's a pretty heavy duty herbicide that I use pretty sparingly. We did not there. We hammer it with Thordon on purpose. Because we do not want this thing to blow up and escape.
Does the changing water situation relate to some of this stuff happening or not really?
No, I don't. The African rue for sure. When we had that flood event, or the big water event, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, all the low-lying areas out in that where this stuff is, it wiped it out. We have one landowner with a pivot that he has a hard time with water, but when he doesn't run his outer towers, the African rue will crowd in. But as soon as he turns the outer towers on, it'll crowd right back out. It is very water intolerant. So unfortunately, what it does, it sits on these little alkaline knolls out there. And if you're familiar with the basin that's full of them, right? And it looks flat as can be until you go out there and it's not. I mean, they can be 3 or 4 foot. And that's what it's growing on. So the water can't get to it. So when we get those, when we get some flood water out there, it kills the low-lying areas with the upper. But when we started this, and Jesse was there actually, I think at the very beginning of this, right?
The root?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have knocked this down from a lot of acres to just a handful every year. And we don't have to boom treat, so it's not nearly as destructive on all the natives out there.
The one thing with Yellow Star, depending on how water resources look moving forward as far as irrigation wells being shut off and dryland farming comes in, Yellow Star thistle comes in really easily in dryland farming situations. Eastern Washington, Northeast Oregon, anywhere you have dryland farming, you have Yellow Star thistle.
I know North Sacramento Valley, when I lived there,
Yeah.
the whole valley.
And it's something about Yellow Star thistle, it's got 2 different seed types. It's got one that looks like a dandelion and floats away, and then one that drops right there on the ground. It doesn't matter if you're wearing leather gloves, it'll poke right through it. It's very nasty, nasty plant. And it'll grow this tall and flower out and seed, and then you'll go next to one that's had a little bit of irrigation, or it's next to a water source, and it'll be 6 foot tall. So it's very aggressive, and it's very nasty, and it's very ugly, and it's something that once it's here, and if it gets established, it'll be very ugly, especially if water resources are cut back and we go to dryland farming.
That's the concern with the upcoming CREP program is one of the options is, planting it into native grasses, and we're trying to get it to where it can still be grazed through the CREP program, but is there anything that competes with it well, or outcompetes it? Is it one of those?
It outcompetes everything. I mean, if you go look at Hell's Canyon country, it outcompetes every native thing we have.
Does the Medusa head look like that?
Blessing.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, it's a problem. We pretty sure we know how it got here. But, so we're tracking that back to make sure that doesn't happen again. But, yeah, and the one blessing of this thing is it's mostly on state land. So we can be aggressive with it. It's not on private or BLM, where we are much more hamstrung with some of the things we can do. So we just gotta make sure it stays that way. So in a nutshell, that was 2020, the weed control department. And then on the back is just a budget thing, and I wanted to talk about the CWMA move. So, how do I start this thing? The last 7, 8 years I've been in this job, we have a very, very hard time hiring training, and maintaining a CWMA coordinator. CWMA is a cooperative weed management area. It essentially brings together all of the public land managers and a few private land managers, but mostly public land managers in the county, to do collaborative projects. They also do grant projects on private lands, but it's really not supposed to be what they do. It's a funding source. What the CWMA's main focus is, and it's always supposed to be, is education outreach. They're supposed to be the ones that are, going to the county fair. They're the ones that are supposed to be doing public, set up booths and have people come. We started a program last year, which I'm very excited about, with the Forest Service again, where we send this person out and they walk our trails and they walk through our campgrounds with a spray backpack on. You want to get people to talk in a campground, put a spray backpack on. But it's a great way to interact with people where they're recreating, to explain the problem of noxious weeds. That's their CWMA's focus and their goal is supposed to be in that. They do, and we do have them do noxious weed grant projects on private lands where they will get like a handful of landowners in a basin or down a drainage, and they'll attack certain weeds. And mostly we do that because they need funding. Otherwise, we would let the weed board do that, or there's other agencies in the county that are very good at it too. Anyway, so we have our current CWMA coordinator rotating out. He decided to resign at the end of December. He has a private business. It's a part-time job, and he just needed more time for his private business. The problem with it, again, is it is a part-time job. It's soft funded. There's no hard funding at all. The county doesn't put any money toward labor. Nobody necessarily does. They drum up money from the VLM, the Forest Service and Refuge, to do different projects, but it's never guaranteed year over year over year. And then the county does, I have used, like if they're licensed, if they get into where I have a lot of work, I'll pull them in for a week or two, and hire them essentially to do some spraying for us. Anyway, we had to change over to SWCD, to a new manager. She came to me and said, why don't we move this thing to the SWCD? They're the fiscal agent for this group. They are a project-driven organization. It's what they do for a living, as they run, weed and land management projects on private lands almost entirely. And the nice thing is they have this other part-time job. And we have this CWMA part-time job. So the idea was, and the idea that we come up with is we're gonna put those together. It gives us a lot more funding streams. They can hire at a much higher rate than we can because of that. So we're hoping we can draw in more of a, botanist, more of a range specialist kind of person, rather than what we typically get is like me, where I didn't have any experience, or we get a spray person that isn't really what this job needs. They need a person that likes to run programs and likes setting up meetings and likes doing trainings, and it's a different skill set than what we've been able to pull, especially part-time. Everybody always said, yeah, I agree with part-time, until we lay them off the first time. And they're like, I can't do this. So then they leave. I've been here 7 years, we've had 4 CWMA coordinators. We just can't keep them. So the idea was, we're not losing the program doesn't, for the community, it doesn't go anywhere, as far as they're concerned. It's just we're moving this position, just the coordinator position, from the county to the SWCD. And then they're gonna retitle it as a CWMA coordinator. I don't know, there's something else that goes behind that. And they'll have the funding, and honestly, they'll have, Shannon Brubaker is the manager up there. She is very, very good at running projects. I will say unequivocally, every day, she's better than I am at running these kind of projects. It's what she does too. She's from the state of Oregon. I think we're lucky to get her personally, in the Harney County. She's very good at what she does. So anyway, we've been working on this for a long time. There is no benefit to the county. I highlighted some negatives. Actually, I'm calling them positives. We're gonna get some hidden costs back by not housing this person. And the big one that's not on here, because I don't know how to quantify it, is the liability. Just for the person and the equipment, the liability. We get all the benefits of the program without that. The SWCD is willing to take that on, and I'm sure willing to let them. I'm still the chair of that subcommittee, so the county weed board will have a high presence on it. I don't see any advantage for the county to not do this. I don't see one single one.
And you haven't heard anyone else express any negative?
No, the SWCD had questions, mostly around funding. They weren't sure if they could get, I say we, because CWMA kind of near and dear to me too, but if the CWMA could get funding, like from the federal partners, if they're housed in the SWCD, and they can, because all the agreements currently for the CWMA are through the SWCD. So there's nothing on those that actually say anything. So, yeah, the SWCD was more than happy to do it. The CWMA subcommittee thinks it's a great idea. There's just no reason, I don't see, to not do it. The county doesn't and can't make a dime off it. We do spend about $4,600 in hidden costs that I could pull out. And these will actually be, I put them on here for you all to see, these will actually be budget adjustments for next year. So it's not a huge amount of money, but if you look at my budget, it's not a very big budget. So if I can save $5,000, why not? Why not let them do that? The program doesn't go anywhere. I don't see a disadvantage to it. So that's why I came to Pete and said, I think this is a brilliant move. As soon as she brought it up, I think this is a brilliant move. I don't know if you guys, if you knew Shannon Brubaker, she is very good at this. She's very good at this kind of stuff. So that's why I say, I think it should go there. And everybody I've talked to, yeah, for sure, there's no reason to keep it here. It's not really ours. It never was. We just ran payroll for it. And then we got a reimbursement from the SWCD and all that. The program was its own thing. It just had to be housed somewhere, so the county took it. It's not a county program.
So it came in the form of a grant, is that?
The CWMA?
Yeah.
No, it's actually, it's a brainchild out of Idaho, and it's just every county area has one for the most part, across Oregon. Some counties have several. I think Grant County has 3. Malheur County has 3 that I know of. Harney County only has 1 because, for the most part, it's pretty hard to have. We tried one of this out there one time, and it didn't work. But it's a state program. It's just all community-based. And they all look different. There is no rhyme or reason to them. Some of them are 100% private landowners, like Jordan Valley. It's 100% ranchers that are part of that CWMA. There are some that are hodgepodge. Some of them have a lot of big corporations, like Lake counties. They have like Simplot, and they have larger corporations that are part of the board, the CWMA board. There is no real rhyme or reason, but their overall goal is educate. That's what the CWMA is supposed to do. And help coordinate between, a lot of times the BLM's doing something the Forest Service doesn't know right across the fence, or a private landowner. So the CWMA's job is to help coordinate that. That's what it's supposed to do. And it's 100% soft funded. Luckily, we have great federal partners, and they've all stepped up. The BLM, the Forest Service, and the Refuge all put money into that program. And then they have to go, essentially it gives them about a half a year, then they have to go shake some trees for money, or they take a layoff. That's just the deal through the county, that we are not going to take a labor. That's the agreement.
So who will be on the board here with that restructure?
On the CWMA board, it'll be me. So just like it was before.
So you'll be the county representative from it, but who else within the county?
There's a list. Every federal and state agency has a representative on that board. The Paiute tribe has a representative on that board. Every agency. I can't think honestly right now of a private. We don't have a private.
There's the private interests are represented by the weed board on the CW as a board member for the CW.
So do you, as the chair, sit on the CW board? Is that how
It's supposed to be, yes.
it's supposed to be?
The
But it
tribes,
never has been. It's always been the weeds department head to represent the weed board. Always has been since I've been around.
well, and just a little history to back up on where the CWMA originated. When the CWMA all came together and they're like, okay, now we have these funds, how are we gonna get a coordinator? At that time, the weed supervisor position wasn't a full-time position. And so the county and CWMA came together, made the CWMA coordinator and the county supervisor as one position, and then the CWMA soft funded the weed supervisor position to be a full-time position. So you had one person in that position for
Kind of
however
like what they're
long.
doing now, but
Right, and then it grew to the point where the supervisory position could not successfully manage both the county weed program and weed board as well as the CWMA because the workload had outgrown a full-time position. And that's when it was broke out again into where a part-time CWMA coordinator was brought on. And it was supplemented with county application work as an assistant roadside applicator as needed, just to keep that position flowing as a part-time position. Because it was a soft-funded deal. The financing for the CWMA, like Jim said, has always run through the Soil and Water Conservation District because they
Have the tax ID.
have the tax ID and they are, they look well when you go to apply for grants. Whereas the county, it's not that we don't look well, but when you're coming through as a grant entity or grant entity looking at counties, they look better as a 501c3 or through the Soil and Water Conservation District. There was something else I was going to say. But that's essentially how the CWMA came to be housed underneath the county. Because it essentially, initially was a joint position, then it grew too big.
so I guess my only concern would be the lack of private representation on that board under its current structure.
It's always open. So the only reason there's a lack of private is because we haven't had anybody interested in it.
Well, and some of them, you know, because it is gonna be structured differently, it might be an opportunity to get out there and, you know, try to get some more private interest involved in that.
Right. And they can, yeah, for sure. For sure. Do that.
One other thing on the CWMA stuff, that green pickup, does the county still have it?
Mhm.
That is technically a CWMA vehicle.
Right. And we're working on that. So the idea with the switch, is we're gonna give them, they have that old, it's an old Forest Service rig that we bought for the CWMA. We're working, again, that's helping a lot, or entirely doing. Figuring out a way to transfer that to the SWCD. They have a Arctic Cat 400 that has always been the CWMA coordinators to use. It's a county asset that we want to transfer to the CWMA. And then all the office equipment, which for the most part, the CWMA bought anyway. I think the county purchased the desk, but the rest of it is CWMA purchased stuff. It'll be transferred to the CWMA. Okay, so the two big assets that we just have to legally figure, and I'm not sure how to figure it out, but how to legally transfer from the county to the SWCD so they can use them. They're gonna need them, and we don't. I mean, that's what they were purchasing.
We probably need to have an MOU or something in the works on that, to get that transferred.
Not at this time. I guess there's something on my plate too.
And it's not, I mean, but they haven't even, the SWCD just said, okay, let's do this, so, they're gonna have to, this is gonna be a while before this person actually.
So their board is all for it?
Yes. We had two different meetings with them, and yeah, the last one, they were all, yeah, I think they see the benefit to it.
Well, the kind of turnover that speaks for itself, you know, by it being a part-time position for the past 7, 8 years and people leave.
I had one person.
And the different
2
skill
days.
set, you know, and it really is a different skill set.
It's
You know,
it's a,
And that makes people leave also after a while if it's part-time and it's not.
you gotta be pretty fluent at writing grants and writing a four-wheeler. You know, there's a large spectrum that this person needs to be able to do. Be able to feel very comfortable walking through the woods by themselves. You know, there's.
And also being in front of people as well.
And that was the problem with the last quarter we had, yes, and getting in front of people and feeling comfortable, stand up and present. They need to have that professional, you know, experience to do that,
So with some of this restructure though, does that mean, like with the weed supervisor position, that we redo some of the job description? If you're absorbing a position into your position, and then, you know, I've heard a lot about grants, how much grant writing's taking place in your position currently? I mean, I assume that
We
was
could
part of
certainly look at that
the job description.
I mean,
I couldn't tell you what it said off the top of my head.
I think that'd be good to review while we're at this pivot of making changes. I mean, is there any grants on this that we could,
the only grants that the county runs is the state weed board grants, and they're all shut down for now. But yes, we have an African root, that's the African root.
that's it?
It's through the Oregon State Weed Board, through ODA. That's the only state weed board grant.
Is there other grants that have been available in the past we are currently pursuing, or what takes place with grants and weeds? I guess it's a.
So, yeah, for sure, we could go after all kinds of different grants. The problem becomes, is that, you know, if I go get 5 grants, I gotta hire a person. Right, so there's always that balance of, and I can tell you from the county standpoint, working much closer with our federal partners that are actually in Harney County is a much better use of my time. And letting the SWCD and the CWMA work with the private landowners. That's the idea with this thing. It's what they're really good at. And there is a lot of work that we do just with our federal partners within Harney County.
So is some of the grants for private?
Yeah,
That would be on private
yeah, because you're talking a lot about agencies, but what are we doing with grants and private individuals besides our, you know, because obviously, yes, the Harney County is comprised of a lot of federal land,
Right.
but we also have, you know, a lot of private land too, and how are we making sure that that's.
We've always almost entirely run those through the CWMA. That's always, since I've been around, that's the CWMA's role,
So
is to
we
run.
become more their.
It's always been their part, but what the weed board does, what Harney County and the weed board does, is they come up with ideas. Because they're placed around the county strategically, we have these members on the weed board. And then I ask them 2 or 3 times a year, can you give me some ideas for the CWMA? Because they're out there, they're talking to their neighbors, and we get ideas. So then what we do is, what I do is I go to the CWMA meeting and I go, okay, so the weed board has these ideas, so coordinator, you need to go pursue these. The county doesn't do that, the weed board doesn't do that. The weed board's job essentially is to drum up the ideas, or the need, right, to go find the need within their areas around the county. And then the CWMA or the SWCD job is to write the grants and administer the grants. And we've always helped with, if they need on-the-ground management, the county's more than willing to. I've always done that. I'll go out and help survey or come up with treatment plans or that kind of stuff. But the actual grant writing, the only one that the county's done, I don't know, forever, is the African Root. The rest of them are ones that the CWMA. And we as a partner have done a lot of those.
And we get reimbursed for all those wages as well when they're run through the programs.
Right. No.
Being that we've treated these off and on over the years out where we are, I mean, my sense is that it runs pretty well. But I would like to say that I would love to hear you on, it sounds like a broken record, on our local radio, Harney County Live, because
Randy must be dating.
you
I know he has
speak well
three
to
slots
it.
open.
Yeah, I get a little every time I can. Jim.
And I should, and you're right. I need
You know
to
what,
do
he
that.
makes it easy and it's conversational, but I think the community has a lot to learn about the weed stuff.
Well, I mean, that's why
I mean,
I
that's-
asked for this.
I'm not gonna answer that.
As a private citizen, I
No.
really don't know anything about our weed board, but I know it's associated with the county, so my expectation is that the county's working with private entities.
They do, but through the CWMA. And that's why and this is exactly why we need the right kind of coordinator. Because that's what this coordinator should be doing, right? They should be on the radio. The idea when I got hired was every month I write an article in the paper, you know, as part, you know, with highlighting a problem in the county with not just weeds, or an opportunity. We did start, I'm pretty proud of this, CWMA started 2 years ago, in-town projects, like we did the nature trail. We do a weed pull out there. We really, really wanted to do a goat head pull, and actually weigh them. There's competitions. We got the idea from Boise. The city of Boise does it, and then COVID hit. But we had a lot of like energy going, and that's what the CWMA is supposed to do, right? So then the public can see that. That is their role. But really, the weed board's job is to help them drum up ideas, and then be the teeth if needed through ordinances if needed. We sure don't want to do that. The idea is to go help folks, not, you know, try to cite them or something else like that. So that's kind of the roles of the thing. mean, the problem we've had for a long, long time is we just haven't got the right person to run that CWMA that has that skill set, you know, that we need. And this time,
Steph.
yeah, yeah, she had some things too that just wasn't that out. I mean, we need that person that is out there all the time, like you say. And with not just weeds, it's just not on most people's eye line. I mean, you just don't see it.
But I mean,
Right, so-
even the discussion on yellow star thistle, I mean, weeds are not very interesting to me, but that one is kind of interesting because it's
scary.
really bad. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you ought to talk about that one time. I mean,
Right.
anyway, I would just encourage you because I keep getting feedback from people that they don't read the articles in the paper, the dry articles about the things we want them to know about.
Right.
But they tune into this and they learn something every time they tune into that radio half hour. And you speak well to it, obviously, you know your job and you know a lot. So I would just encourage you to think about yourself. Pick a day you want to. Randy's always looking for scheduling people because he has to schedule like this week.
Before we,
And then one more thing, just for clarification, the building,
The
the
building,
$12,000 building,
that's good.
the county doesn't spend a dime on that. It actually gets reimbursed 110% of that. So,
I forgot about that.
yeah,
That's a
it's.
good question.
It's a SWAT building, and through the agreements we have with our partners, they pay the rent, they pay the insurance, and then the landowner pays for all any kind of repairs, maintenance, that kind of stuff. Unless you actually had a partner twice, run over the fence, unless we do that, then we pay for that. We didn't do that, but it happened. Other than that, the landowner fixes any issue. I went to the group, the interagency group, and said, hey, the county wants to build a building over there. And what they said, was you do that, we're not paying your rent for it. That's your building. So the only reason they reimburse us rent is we have to pay rent. So they backed out quick and said, we're not gonna pay rent on the building we own. So I came back to my boss and said, well, this is silly, because we made 10% on this deal, and we have a person in the community that gets money for this building, and it's right across the street. It's actually super handy to our outfit. Why won't you just stay there? It doesn't cost us anything, they actually make a little bit of money on the side.
What kind of facilities does it have in it? I mean, is it got bathrooms?
Porta potty, but they're not there, right? They're only there, I mean, they can walk in,
Yeah, and they can come across the street, use
yeah.
our office, I mean, if they need to.
But they're not there. I mean, they go there at 6 o'clock and they're gone by 6:10. And they don't come, when they come back, they just drop their stuff off and they leave. They don't work there. They just house their equipment there. So they work in the field. They're almost never actually at the shop. But yeah, there's a porta potty. That's it for that. There's water,
Is there
there's running
anything
water.
in there to, like if they spilled chemical on them or anything
Yep.
to do cleanup?
Yep, there is a wash station. We have spilled kits in there. So one advantage to having a federal partners is they actually help us keep all that because they're so high, they help us with all that. They make sure our SDSs are up to date. They make sure our wash stations are up to date. They make sure they actually do that for us. So it's another advantage to this whole thing. They come in and they sit down and look through our SDSs they just did to make sure that they're up to snuff. And it's great. And then what I do is I just copy them and I take it over to the county site and put it in my building. So it works it's a really good partnership. And they love us. They always tell us they love us. We are very inexpensive compared to a private contractor. And the SWAT's job is not to compete with those. I want to point that out real quick. Its job is to go out and inventory and survey. If they find huge patches of weeds or something, their job is to survey it, turn it back into that, whoever it is, and then they hire a contractor to do this thing. It's not our job to compete with private contractors.
I guess the
Run
only
up on
other
that.
question I have is, how is the weed board structured? Because obviously, there's a,
Different regions within the county.
but then
Right.
how are they appointed to the board?
You, through county court.
Yeah.
We have very little turnover, shockingly, we don't have a lot of interest in people wanting to be on the weed board. We've had a couple, Jesse was new, geez, I'm gonna forget his name. The one out in Diamond,
I know Dan.
took Dan's spot. Anyway, and then they
Who
actually,
gave us that list?
He's chief for that.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll write a letter, and then we present it to you guys, and then you guys approve or don't approve it.
Karen Whitman was at one of our meetings, we asked her that same question, and she wrote a drop-off list.
Well, it's
The
not
different
that,
parts.
what, you got 8 or, how many you got?
6.
6,
No,
okay. It's
okay,
a
so that's
smaller
different.
board.
Yeah.
We have a small board. The reason we have a weed board is because the county is an actual weed control district. So because we have an active state ordinance, or the county has adopted the state weed control ordinance, we have an active weed control district. So therefore, we have to have a weed board to function as the overseer of the weed control district.
And that opens up grants. The state, before all this COVID hit, they were actually getting a lot of momentum to get county-only grants through the Oregon State Weed Board grant. But the only way, the main qualifier was you had to be a weed control district.
And we do have.
We do have a weed control district. I actually brought the ordinance, because I was reading it the other day. It's, ordinance 2008-61 is the most recent, that's when it was revised from 1989.
We just revised it.
Well, this is the one that's on the website.
Oh, it hasn't got updated, because we just,
Like
Yeah.
in 2020 or?
Yeah, so just
19
recently, so
or
you
20,
have
was it
the,
20? Might have been 20, it was very recently that we
yeah,
just
it
revised
was,
it.
I remember that.
And the main thing, we just,
But,
We need to get it done.
but as far as the way I understand it with the weed board is that the weed board is the representing interest of the private party and is advisory to the county court. So, and then we're the one that are like, hey Jim, do this, hey Jim, do that, hey Jim, do this.
yeah, every 3 months I get a list of things.
So do we have something similar in place to the fair board with the members of the weed board? I mean, obviously that's.
Fair board's different, it's got its own statutes on it. Weed might have its own statutes, I don't know.
I mean, do we have any formal agreement, like, I mean, we have a formal deal with our fair board, like, do we have something formal with,
Like an
where?
MOU or,
Yeah, and it's.
I'd have to go look, I'm not gonna.
We do informal, I mean, I go out and help bring weeds out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, with anytime we appoint, my assumption is that we have some sort of formal agreement in place with those individuals too,
With what individuals?
of the board.
I guess it depends on what the duties are, defined by statute.
I mean,
If it isn't.
is the record of who's appointed to the weed board in the minutes of county court meetings, or where's the documentation, I guess?
I have it, but I'm sure, I
Yeah,
know that
yeah.
you guys have had it. That's the only way we get weed board members, is through the county court,
So,
so.
it's something we can do in county court, like we do planning commission seats or.
But if you want a list, I can sure provide a list, a map, that shows the areas.
Yeah, that'd be good. I just
It's been functioning a long
wonder
time.
if, you know, just because we have something similar, like we have an MOU with the fair board, do we need something similar with the weed board just to?
I think well, I don't know the answer, but I would think maybe not, because, it's a different entity than the fair board. Fair board has those extra legalistic things that are different than a county weed board.
We serve at your guys' pleasure.
Discretion, pleasure.
Discretion. So pleasurable, oh my gosh. No pleasure.
I'll look and see if there's something, or there needs to be something.
I'm
I
just
think,
curious.
I know fair board
Anytime
are
we.
by statute.
Yeah, where it's got a formal weed district.
It's
I
just
didn't know
one
if
of
there
those
was
quiet-
something
quiet
attached to a
committees.
formal weed district, there's formal agreements that come with that.
Just one of those quiet committees that do their thing. We appreciate it.
It's the unsung heroes and the volunteers that sit on our boards and.
If you ever look at those boards, it's comprised of most of the same people. I go around to the different ones, I'm like, you're on all these. And there are some very, very unsung heroes. They sit on a lot of these boards for no money. They just do it to serve.
Okay. I think that's good.
Jeez, I was,
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm
maybe I
curious.
should come more than once every 3 years.
So you're all ready to go talk
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Good job. Good work, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna excuse myself, will you guys get to the old business?
Okay.
Do you
Do we have any folks on the phone? I've heard a couple beeps.
Hi, Pete, Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Pete, this is Denise from Economic Development.
Thank you. I just heard two beeps, so I figured I had two people listening, so. Okay, we got a few minutes before we hit Susan's report, so we'll start a quick discussion on the Harney Homes program. I think Denise can weigh in on that too. So this, Patty was on the phone at that last meeting with the housing committee. And this is an idea that Greg Smith has through Morrow Development Corporation to build a home in Harney County, where the money would come from Morrow Development, and it needs to go somewhere. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So this money would be to buy a house, say, and I think the number we're talking is $150,000. Once this house is built, it's auctioned off, and the proceeds go into a pot, and we'll do it again. And we'll build a house, followed by a house, to where it almost, after you get enough, after you sell enough, you'll have enough money in your pot to build your houses. The loan gets paid back, and you move on. We're accomplishing our goal. That's a real quick story. Denise can fill in. What is going to be needed is someone, most likely a government entity, to hold that money, that $150,000. No, we're not getting into the home building business. We're not selling homes. But we would have to hold those funds for the contractor to disperse out as the contractor builds his project. It could, well, we have a local.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me step in immediately. GODC is serving as a fiscal agent for the city of Pendleton for when they're going to be rehabbing a building. And so when the contractors, we're the fiscal agent, so the money will we have an account set up at the bank. And when they start construction, then we will be cutting the checks to the contractors. So
Possibly GEODC could be this fiscal agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
all set up for it.
Okay. So that's what the discussion is if Greg gets this approval and the nod from Moral Development, and we try this pilot project, where will the funds sit? And this is just the early beginnings of this talk. You heard a lot of the talk on that call that day. Denise, you can speak in if you like.
That's a lot of what I know as well. I have not, I did not know if Greg has had that meeting with Morrow Development. We are putting together the remainder of the incentives offered by the community, the cities of Burns and Hines and the county, in kind of a one-stop place for contractors. Just FYI, we've also been talking to at least 3 contractors, a mixture of local and fairly local regional, who are very interested in this project and are kind of just waiting for us to get the steps set up for them to follow. One of them already owns property. The others are interested in any potential auction property or low-cost property, I guess, if you will.
Correct.
I'm curious as to the $150,000 figure. Where was that arrived?
I think that's the comfort number Greg felt to request from Moral Development. I'm speaking
Okay.
just kind of from the talks Denise and I have had. From the Biz Harney phone call the other day, I mentioned this, and we have a young gal in the community who is not an architect. What does she do exactly?
She actually has a degree in architecture, just didn't go on and get the certifications, but could take a design process quite a ways along the road and is very enthusiastic about participating to kind of lend that level of expertise to our project. None of us have that expertise. I don't. Pete, do you have that expertise?
I can draw stick buildings. So, I mean, this could be really unique.
So how is it decided on the size or structure of the home, or?
Dollars.
It's just,
And
the
see-
contractor will look at that and bring a plan, or?
Well, I think, and I need to verify with Howard, if we have this design, I think you can take those into building department, they send them off to state planning and they come back with your.
So are we, as in the economic development, going to be in charge of coming up with the home design, and then a contractor says, I will build
I think
that?
probably the housing committee. And it'll be a
And
housing committee through economic development.
And I wanna really hope that, first, I don't know how well our housing starts and projects are happening without us doing anything beyond what we've already
Yeah,
done.
I'm curious.
Are they going to happen
Actually,
anyway?
I could answer that. In 2020, I talked to Brandon at the planning department. There were 14 housing permits pulled. That doesn't mean they were all started, but 14 were pulled with an additional 7 for mobile homes. And he said that could be as simple as someone wanting to put a ranch hand single wide out on their property. So that's a pretty significant jump, I think, from 2018, 2019 in the number of single family home permits.
But most of those, I believe, are out in the county too, though. Very few home starts in Burns.
It was a mixture, and I didn't have him line it out for me, but it's a house, any house at this point can be very helpful to our housing stock increase.
True. I just don't wanna lose some of the intentional, efforts to bring the middle to upper income housing. If we stay at the affordable housing level, which seems to happen more easily than the middle to upper income in our market, I would just like to make sure that that's what we're supporting to happen, because that's where we identify the need after quite a bit of
150
study.
going for.
Yeah, so that's all I was like,
I think that's where we are working. I know there are other entities working on different avenues for housing, but that's kind of where the judge and the county court, we felt, focused our office.
How do we know when we've saturated the housing market, though? I mean, what things are we watching for to make sure that we don't overdo?
I would defer to Susan in that regard. She's the one that, our housing roadmap has definitely been a roadmap for our efforts, and I'd ask Susan to maybe address that question.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it's fair to say that the county and Burns Hines is far from saturating the market. I'd have to go back and take a look at the numbers, but and I could be more than happy to report back. But I think it's far from saturation.
Yeah,
Well, your original proposal was kind of, we created our mantra, if you will, our title for the program was that if we could get an additional 5 homes built in the next 5 years, so 25 by 2025, that would abate the issues that were identified in 2019. I don't know, this is very speculative, but I think we all can agree that that need may have gone up over the last year and a half.
Yeah, I think, and you can judge it by your waiting list with your rental people, through Blackburns, through.
right, they're gonna know.
They're gonna know.
How long houses sit on
Well,
the
you
market.
see Colby looking for people, begging people to put their houses up for sale.
Yes.
So.
The real estate community has been an amazing resource. They are right there with us partnering, and yeah, I agree. They would give us some good information if we started seeing things flattening out.
Well, I would be interested in, and we can look into this
Well,
with Brandon, but if the housing market is starting to work, okay, fine, but if we're not getting those 5 middle to upper income kind of houses going in, then that's where I would like us to try to help that happen. Because again, if you just add a whole lot of houses that are all at that same level of the lower, you're still having that problem, and there's still not that healthy market of mobility up and down the market that happen with people throughout the lifetime of their home needs and our professional workforce needs. So I think it's very interesting. I just want to keep holding on to that middle to upper income
I think
job.
at $150,000 cost, you're looking
Right,
at houses
right.
that retail for 200.
Right, and we were saying, two
Right
fifty
now,
to
the
300.
market's higher than that.
Yeah, I mean,
It's crazy right now.
I mean, let's keep the conversation going. I think it's interesting.
I spent a hell of a lot more than $150,000 on just remodeling.
Well, that's what I'm wondering what we're gonna get with 150, just with building costs in 2020 having almost gone through the roof. You know, there's some concern
Might need
that
more
we're-
money there, Denise. for
that we're
more
going
grant.
for low fruit.
I actually think the hope, and again, that we have not gotten a lot of this down on paper yet, but the hope is that there will either be someone with a lot in hand, or that they will be able to access a very low-cost lot, already zoned residential, already in an appropriate neighborhood. We're not talking about somebody going out and building, on 5 acres or something like that at this point, because that kind of infrastructure would not be in that budget. They'd have to have water and sewer probably at the property line. So I think we are kind of waiting to hear what the county is planning to do with some of their properties they've been considering for auction. We know we have one contractor who does already own a lot in Hines.
Okay, that's what I wanted to.
Hines is not going to sustain a $300,000 house. Unless you're in
We're all over
private
the
acres.
place.
You're gonna have to look at specific acreage.
I think it comes back to the housing committee on the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a little after 11 now. Let's bring Susan in on her report. Don't leave, Denise.
I want to hear what Susan has to say too.
All right.
Well, Denise. Okay, well, thank you for having me on the agenda today. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I almost came down to see you in person, but I'm still fearful I'm going to bring the cooties from Umatilla County to Harney County that's so low in your COVID rate. So anyhow,
Thank you.
I wanted to, yeah, you're welcome.
Come see us, I'd rather see
I wanted to call out the results from the grants that GEODC distributed, through For Business Oregon. We were really kind of like the middle person. And I wanted to make a note that Harney County, thanks to Denise and to Andrea, that Harney County, for the first round, there was distributed $114,186, and out of that, Harney County secured about 23% of those dollars. So that was 10 awardees, 10 people received grants at $25,000. So the fact that you garnered throughout the district 23%, that was pretty striking to me, and a testament to Denise and Andrea and their work. So the next round that we received funding for, Harney County, out of $1,392,500, Harney County brought into the county $339,500, which is about 24% of that total. So Harney County rocked it. There were, in the second round, there were 64 awardees, applicants, and the total $339,500. So, and I could not have done that without Denise and Andrea. So I small little thank you, Denise, and Andrea couldn't make it, is a certificate of my appreciation,
This
which
is what they look like.
has what they look like. Now, the real ones in a frame are being mailed out today. So I want to say thank you so much and appreciate all your support. And it's just a testament to Harney County, the community, and all the folks that really rally when the need is there.
Those are great numbers, Susan. Thank you so much for breaking that down. We knew we were working hard, but I did not understand how hard.
And so,
No, you guys really rocked it.
and those dollars were for all your GEODC counties?
Yes, so out of the 7 counties, the first round, Harney County secured 23% of the dollars, and the second round, Harney County secured 24% of the total dollars.
Good job. Very good.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, there's, I think with what you guys did and what the county got and did, there was well over $1,300,000, $1,300,000, I think, is the rough number I had in my head that went out in Harney County.
Yeah, and there, it's not to make anyone whole, but I certainly received reports that folks were able to either pay employees, keep the lights on, or in some cases, purchasing supplies, like a couple of hairdressers. I don't know if they were in Harney County, but they were able to buy more supplies to get them through the springtime. So things like that it did make a difference.
Yeah. Thank you.
And hey, if I could switch back really quick to the conversation with the weed department.
Sure.
And workforce training. Eastern Oregon Workforce Board does have a grant out right now for training, for training. So, I mean, there may be a grant opportunity currently right now. If anyone's interested, I'd be happy to speak with them.
Okay.
Especially where we've had 2 positions vacated, that would be good timing.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Pete knows how to get a hold of me.
Yep. You're in my phone. Okay, cool.
Excellent.
Anything else from GEODC? I like your thought on that. Maybe a place to house these dollars. It's surely not something we're used to doing. We'll have to run that. Denise have to run that by Greg too.
What?
I was just saying to Denise, we'll have to, run that by Greg too as an option.
Yeah, I will definitely mention, I'm sure we have another meeting coming too, don't we, Judge?
As soon as you schedule it.
Okay.
It's February, so here we go.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something there.
Is it gonna take February?
Yeah, the concept that you're talking about
Yeah, I thought you
kind of fits into 2 articles that I sent Patty and Pete and Greg, Denise.
They were great, thank you. It's amazing what people have shared with us this problem. Creative.
Naturally occurring affordable housing, a new term, NOAA, a new acronym. And it's a long-term approach, but I think on a micro level, it could be something that Harney County could use as a concept, as a model. So I think there's hope.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Questions for?
Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, you sending us stuff like that, Susan, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for letting us know about the workforce training grant that's coming available.
It's available now, and it's first come, first serve, so
Okay,
I
so
wouldn't.
get on it, you're saying.
Dilly dally.
Yeah, we will do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome to stay on and listen, or you can move along to what else you got to do. So let's.
I've got to get my board packet ready, that's what I'm doing.
Is that next Tuesday? Yeah.
It is Tuesday.
Okay. Hope it's on my calendar.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay, thank you.
Goodbye. Okay, we schedule meetings or move back up to number 1, old business.
Is Doug available?
His
not-
conference is going on, that's why he's not here. I mean, he's here, but he's not here.
Should we pick it to the next one then?
We can,
Yeah.
I
He
just
did a lot of
included
work
this-
on it, and-
This,
One more thing I would like someone to look into for when we do discuss it is if they can identify the last couple of times that the county convened it, like what year and who the members of the board were at that time. And if there was any written documents that kind of gave their conclusion or recommendation.
it should be in the Commissioner's Journal. I can remember once in my 10 years, so.
Okay.
Would there be any benefit to trying to have
Well,
some of
maybe-
those individuals do it again because they have
I
experience?
have to see who it was. I
or-
know Sharon
I
Davis
think
was one of
Joyce
them.
Moser was one of them. and
Dale White, I
Sharon.
believe, was one.
And I don't remember the third, and it's only because I forgot, I wasn't aware of it when it was happening, it's just that it had come up as a topic one other time since I've been on the board to where,
Yeah, basically what we do is we appoint the board and then we're out.
and they do their thing. I appreciated the stuff Dag sent in that,
Yeah, it was
it looked like
useful to
Wasco
read.
County had really good way of, capturing their minutes and their work that they do as a board.
I couldn't decide from their minutes if they were, it didn't sound like they were on a tier, so weird. I was trying to figure out what
You
is
said
their
they
base.
had some kind of a schedule put together, which is an option to hear, that would be a recommendation
Yeah,
from
the
the
budget
board,
board.
you know,
or
I
the
mean,
compensation board would think that that'd be an easier way to tackle it, or.
yeah, if Dag's not available, unless Bobby Joe really wanted to brief us today,
It's postponed.
then let's postpone.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't want to drop it.
No.
We talked about it.
No, we're in motion on it, we're gonna get it accomplished.
Right. Okay, so we will reschedule. And we'll find out prior board members
And,
and when.
any of their recommendations, written recommendations,
okay.
that has to
We
be.
do that. Okay.
Because in that, they may have said, we think every 5 years is enough in our market or our environment. They may have said, we look forward to doing this again, or, who knows what they
Right.
said. Right.
One reason I brought my laptop in was
You need to shut
to
this
schedule.
down. There is-
Anybody on the phone?
I am Judge, but I wouldn't mind being excused.
We're just gonna schedule our rural meetings and we're done, Denise. You
All
don't
right.
have to hang
Very
around.
much, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good day, Denise.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
So, when we talk about the rural meetings, I'm wondering if I know I have not called anyone I know out in those areas to say, hey, is there a meeting or something that's gonna be going on out there that might be a
We
good
could
opportunity
piggyback
where
on?
we could also, because we've had very little turnout, and sometimes
last
it's just,
one-
there's no perfect day.
And the last ones, we never got the postcards out and that didn't help. But even with postcards, they're still not.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it would help those communities out as well to.
You might not want us there on those nights either.
They might be telling us something by not showing up, that's fine, and, but on the other hand, most of the time, they do appreciate if you come out there, it's just that,
Getting the right,
and I think there's enough stuff going on that we might have some good conversations, they might not be aware of some of the stuff going on the last couple of years. But, when you have the French blend / diamond, which one is?
I think we went to French Blend last.
I
It would
think
be
so
nice. It
too,
would be
so
nice.
I think it's time to do diamond,
Yeah.
and I can call like Vermont or Thompson or somebody and just see if she
Dale
knows any.
Crowley's,
Who knows, if you want, unless you wanted to get on the calendar today, but,
No, I just want another same thing, just in my mind, get it down so we don't forget to get it scheduled.
and Kristen, you might know if there's any crane stuff going on that might lend itself to a good opportunity.
Well, the question would be is, can we use the crane building with their current situation? I don't know how much they're able to let outside entities in unless they're gonna do it in clean. So it'd be, making sure that they're able to let us use them in this weird situation. Maybe we should.
Well, let's find out. We'll postpone it, we'll reschedule this for next meeting also.
Okay,
I'll talk to Matt on Tuesday.
okay.
We're going to train, we've usually gone into the home ec.
Purpose.
In the door
We had
down to
done-
the right.
Where
Yeah,
the
that's where
school
they do
board,
their school board.
yeah,
So
we've
that's-
been, and one time we went, and it was in a multi-purpose room. And we showed up and had, that time. Well, there might have been one teacher, but, and again, it's not that it's essential that there is a turnout, it's just, I wanna make it
We could
good
do a
for
little
them,
legwork
good for the
prior,
community.
yeah, and get some commitment. But I'll
They check
visit
them out
with him
again,
on
I'll-
Tuesday.
I'll check with
You know, take-
Ramonda.
Does she help with the schools or?
If not, she'll tell me who to call.
Yeah, you guys, I'd appreciate it. Normally I'd have Terry do it.
Yeah, well, it's fine.
Terry's, maybe hopefully within a week, 10 days, they're home for us, so. Physical therapy's
Better.
getting better.
Is he here local?
You know, still been. So, but she called yesterday, she sounded much better. There. Been working really hard with him on the physical therapy. Said it was almost like he's had to relearn everything. So it's pretty weak set now. Anyway, it's going good. Thought she would know more after yesterday's afternoon session. So we'll probably hear some more next year. So even though when they're back in town, I still we'll have her back.
What she's gonna have.
What her capabilities.
wise,
So far, I'm plugging along. Some days get piled up, but it's okay.
Well, let us know where we can go and heal.
Water use request, I tabbed.
I took a quick browse on them earlier in
Yeah, I highlighted and tabbed what Harney County and two of them.
the. Yeah, no, that looks great.
Yeah.
I had a phone call yesterday from Walden's office now, but Vince's office. What's his name? He's been with Walden forever.
Not Tucker.
Not Tucker, it's the other one.
I want to say Jacob, but that's not right. It's,
I have him in my contacts.
he's white.
Right, DJ, Riley?
Not Riley. Another guy that's been there with Riley for a long time.
I maybe only talked to
He wants to know when a good time is to visit with us all together, just to basically get a staff introduction and who in the office will be in charge of this and this and this. And I'm supposed to call Elizabeth back and let her know.
So
What
whose
works?
office is this for?
Vince,
Oh, it's,
yeah.
Some of
Vince has most of Walden's staff still in place, plus a few new ones. They just want to give us a hello and a welcome, and here's who's in our staff and who's overseeing these areas. Just a kind of a quick meeting, they will do it by Zoom. I'm supposed to let her know what works. What works.
we're looking at our calendars, so what works for you?
And I think she mentioned next Tuesday or Friday.
Tuesday, I've got LCAC in the early part of the afternoon. Why did I write 10:40 down for something? I didn't write anything beside that. I wonder what that means. That's not good.
After lunch would work for me on Tuesday.
That's a good time.
And then they get okay.
There's gonna be something where you get on at 10:20, but it starts at 10:40. Does that Did that apply to any of you guys?
There are, well, is it any AFCs? Cause that was the Monday, not Tuesday.
Monday's the full AOC day. Tuesday,
I have.
I could do it late in the
October
afternoon or
meeting
early in the morning on that Tuesday.
9, I haven't. So I've been going over all these state transportation, 70 applications, yeah. So that's our first review day, is that morning at 9. So I
Well,
can do 8:30, or we can do after your LTAC meeting afternoon.
yeah, either of those are fine with me,
Like
8:30 or
GE does
3.
GEODC at 3.
Oh, okay, how about it, do you have anything at 8:30?
I'm looking at 8:30.
Should be 11:30 back there, that might work for them. Okay. Second choice?
Friday I'm open. That's
Which Friday?
the 12th.
I have
Hair
my
appointment?
call with Gina at 2. Huh?
Hair appointment.
Thanks a lot. This is as good as it's gonna look, dude.
You all told me that's one thing you never miss, that's what I said.
It's true. I'll change surgery before I change the hair appointment. Okay.
It's hard to get beauticians in this
It's
town.
really hard.
We maybe need that more than housing.
No, I just had my 2 o'clock call with Gina that day on the 12th.
How about 9 in the morning? As a second choice?
Yeah,
Okay.
could do that. How about you, Christina?
Okay, I'll give her those 2 days. Friends, we had that one 5-year award from Catley. February 1st of 16, she started here.
Who was that?
Brooke.
Time goes fast.
Yeah. Okay, reschedule elected officials with some information, rescheduling training meetings, but you'll both get information.
Who's gonna follow up on that workforce training thing? One of you guys? You can find out more
I'll
what.
find out more and then I'll put it in Jim's lap.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, he's
Yeah.
gonna need to pursue it with
Yeah.
great speed.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask,
Well, you're on workforce. Have you heard about it? or-
not really,
That's weird.
not particular, our regional workforce board is not as dynamic as you know. So, but Terry Helbush is on that.
Is the director still Rochelle?
Yeah.
And that might be why she's more aware. I think it encompasses that area too, so that's.
Yeah, NACO, you know, they're, so, there's obviously,
I've seen some emails on that, but I was gonna ask you
So
what is.
normally,
current.
when it's not COVID, there's an actual legislative conference in Washington DC in February or March, and there's the summer, annual conference somewhere, different place each time, and as needed or as appropriate, then we may or may not go to them. Usually at least one person goes, usually, county judge tends to go. I'm on 3 different things at the NACO level now. Some years, you are or you're not. But anyway, this year it's virtual. And there is a registration fee, and obviously because I'm on the Justice and Public Safety Steering Committee and the Rural Action Caucus and the Veterans and Military Service committees, then I'm going to be active in those meetings. How about you, Pete? What's your, on that?
Natural resource one, we didn't have anybody last year, we were just starting. So we made sure we had a vote there. And that's something I can give up to you, and then normally I sit on transportation, arts, and education. I didn't sign up, I think let's go ahead and sign up on our own.
Okay.
I'd like to, it's like it's over 3 weeks, did you notice that?
Yeah, I mean,
And I
until
like-
they
I
give
don't
me
wanna-
the
I thought the
exact
structure
schedule.
was
I
kind
did
of
too,
odd,
so
that's why
I didn't
was
wanna
like,
sign
is this
anybody up
normal
to
at
this.
all?
Normally it's 3 or 4 days, starts on the Saturday, goes through Wednesday, live.
Yeah, in fact, I kind of printed out just so I could at some point actually look at it and see which ones I'd be going to, but I do feel like I want to go ahead and register soon, just because
Go
the
ahead.
price goes up. if you
Go ahead and
wait.
register yourselves,
Okay.
because I just thought it was too hard to pick. When I got to looking at it after you called, I was like, ooh.
Exactly, yeah, okay.
But you can register and get reimbursed for it, for sure.
I forgot how to submit
I know.
reimbursement things,
Yeah,
it's
but
been
that's-
so long. As far as the AOC stuff goes,
I can give you county credit for
no, I don't know.
that. Your money's turned off right now. We ordered something the other day and for the county, weird thing happened with PayPal, so we called them up and canceled that. Put a stop on that card. It was weird.
Like there was fraud going on.
Yeah, what the Hotmail address and, but I questioned PayPal, they said, no, it's all legit, so I'm just waiting to turn it back on. I see product come, we ordered, an artificial street for the courthouse, clearance rate is $100. Yeah, it's, every year it's a challenge, you just go get it, and they're the best.
Pictures are here. I wish mine looked like pictures.
Best thing I ever bought and after Christmas
Yeah,
sales.
we just
years
decided
back,
to
it's
be,
like,
we decided to be easier here. It's a, not the perfect one, it's got some tweaks and branches hanging out. But until it shows up, I'm leaving my card turned off. It's weird. It's a weird transaction.
I had Jared, Trag something. He's with the Forest Service. In the Restoration Collaborative meeting, they mentioned that the Forest Service is looking at a contract for some fuels for the biomass.
Oh,
field.
boy.
And he was wondering if I could send him some information on the biomass.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you could get me some to give to him, then I'm trying to get to know him because he's on a lot of those meetings, so it's a good way to
There's
visit with
good
him.
writers. Yeah.
Okay, if you could pass some along.
Last I heard from Lori is the tribe's gonna be working this contract. They're cutting the tree, I guess it's like that, I'm sure. But this,
So it was Josh Giles.
yeah, this is through Josh. And the tribe is very interested, I shouldn't say they haven't, but they're very interested in it. That they would do the
Oh, they're
removal
gonna
or the
Be the
physical labor.
ones that provide this.
Right. Yeah, and then the biomass will just end up with a lot of the cost, no cost. We'll not pay that shipped to work, but that'll be huge savings for the biomass too.
maybe we can get
Yeah,
an agenda item brief, just,
Maybe they could
it's
be
been
on
a
the
while.
agenda too.
maybe ask Lori or
Sure.
kind of give us the
Then I feel a little unfun.
It's still a model project. There's people here looking at it. What they're doing in their areas.
Yeah, he was curious. He's from California. He just came from California, transferred up this way, and so trying to get to know him.
It's frustrating. It's such a great thing. Everybody who's and ahs about it. And renewable stuff is such a trend and a topic. Yeah, trying to get a log off of public land is a nightmare.
And more so
Absolutely.
in the future. Like right now, the Crow project could be hung up for up to 2 years, and we have those BPA contracts not ready to go for our local guys this year on it. And now with the 21-inch rule, and we have to postpone signing the Crow because now they have to go apply the new 21-inch rule to the project because it's out, because they've specifically done this project with the previous 21-inch rule and did all this exclusion work for it.
No.
And now they're making them go reapply the new stuff to it, and so our BPA contracts might not come to fruition for up to 2 years, because now it's gonna be litigated. It's like, oh, here we have good projects for local
They
guys
do
lined
more
up, they did a
damage.
lot of work, and, got these bids ready for us.
The restoration is being hurt by the environmentalists who want to
They have
restore
no
things.
idea.
I don't understand what they're doing to the whole thing. It's really
Super
sad.
frustrating to hear that because he was so close to signing.
City Wild and City Rivers.
Oh, yeah.
So I called.
I saw that email from
I
That was
remember-
wasn't that interesting? After I called him Monday morning, I had a call from him. I was like, why do I hear about this from
Jacob.
a local individual, which was Cecil Dick, tribe? He came in, what do you guys think about Wild and City Rivers? And I said, I don't think we think much about him. It's gonna interfere with grazing, et cetera. And he wouldn't, Cecil wouldn't give me much information, but it's about the Mount here somewhere, out there where they have. He said, Mount here, and I said, in Harney County, because they have stuff,
Right.
Grad and Mount here. He said, yeah, of course, he's a little more thorough with the information, but I says, well, he wanted me, he's gonna get back with me, see what I think. So I called Jacob. He had a phone call with the guy in Washington. 18, they put out a request for nominations for Wild and City Hearings. I remember seeing them.
I remember
I don't
seeing,
pay attention, I don't
remember
want to list any of them.
I actually wrote an objection.
So now they're narrowing all these 15,000
So they-
suggestions they got down to what's really viable. And at the same time, Wyden wants to rewrite part of the Wild and Scenic Route Act.
Which I read through some of his revisions, but it's still the danger of those revisions not being accepted.
I'm not
Like,
I
I
don't
don't
get
have
kinda-
faith that they're gonna get that one right.
stirring very often in my question. I said, why wasn't the county? Oh, we're just, and they stumble, or we're on to that point yet. I said, well, wouldn't it be easier to talk to your partners first and come up with
With
a
a little
product
bit
that
of
might be
lead
more
time.
acceptable to everybody than instead of chunks?
Take all these random things and then come back to us and go, oh, now what do you think?
Yeah, so, and I said, how many were in the Harney? They asked it 3 times and never got an answer.
They
And he
can't
kept saying
answer
there's
that.
15,000 streams. I said, not in Harney County, there's not. I thought that was state, and I think it is from the other day. But, I mean, they weren't hearing me, I was so frustrated. So
You're
Wyden's got a
talking to
town
Harney
hall
County,
on
give me a
Friday.
Harney County answer.
And I
Wyden
won't
has
be
a
able
town
to
on Friday
attend
at
that.
noon, just Zoom, I'll be on it, just to hear
Gonna
what's
be on
up.
the road.
I might be able to.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, those emails today with the AOC. I don't know if I'm the first commissioner to squawk and say, what's going on?
It almost seems like the sneak under the radar thing to get an email last night that's got these attachments of these letters to AOC in October and
I don't
February.
remember AOC having any talk
That
about it.
boom,
I remember
that would,
something since I've been a commissioner being brought up. I started was on the phone. It was like, when we were having phone calls with us periodically. And there was a discussion on the phone and everybody went down my throat on it. Okay, no. I distinctly remember everybody saying that was not our desire. Stay out of our backyard.
So, let's see what goes in there. I don't know if that's
well,
what's burning,
thank
but I
you
will
for,
not have.
thank you for calling and raising that red flag.
And see, so they're concerned about their fishing grounds and their,
So does he want, does Cecil want it?
he wouldn't say. I think, and all they kept saying, well,
He
I
won't
said,
tell
why,
you.
I said, why are you contacting the tribe? Why are you contacting the tribe about the county? And I finally got him with Wilder Sovereign. I didn't matter, shooting this together. I said, you had that legislation on
It's called coordination.
yeah. I said, you had legislation on the Hawaii Canyon lands where you went and you met with community groups and worked together and came up with it. To me, that's what you need to be doing. Oh, that's exactly what we're doing, but we're just trying to get it narrowed down first before we have those meetings. And that's kind of where it ended.
But see, the only reason why on the Waipio they got the local ranchers to buy into that is because there's security put in, the grazing would be maintained, and there was getting to be so much recreation there that it was becoming detrimental even to the ranchers. And so the ranchers finally said, we're willing to sign on to this because it's getting out of control with public use to the point that we can't control what's going on with our livestock here because there's so much public use out here, but we've got to put some sideboards on how much, because there was a lot of ATVs and other things out recreating, and so now we won't be able to take motorized vehicles out there except for certain exclusions with, direct need from producers. And so that was the only reason why they signed on to that, was because of the conditions were getting deteriorated due to too much public use, and this was one way to
Did you,
work with that.
did you see that letter that said they had 2,500 comments and came up with 15,000 identified rivers?
Some of them put on 10.
Some of them are just sitting there going, well, I
Every
really like,
river I know.
I really like the Sylvia when I was in Harney County. Castle Rock, someone's called out there. I
See,
think
they
that
want
area.
Castle Rock. The tribe has asked Ryan to give them Castle Rock. And he's working with them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that. So, anyway,
Fun for now.
more fight there. That's the latest I know of what's going on up here.
One of the things that's seeming to happen with the community-based water planning, I'm sure Kristen may have much more.
I have a lot of opinions on that.
And they
right
have
now.
different opinions than me, but, basically, as the community-based water planning group continues to meet and have conversations, and some work being done, but yet tiptoe, around, is finally getting to where they're finally saying to Oregon Water Resources Department, this, we're gonna have to regulate, which is, of course,
Still a long time away.
and I don't know if you had a conversation with Harney yet, but I have mine, which I don't think I was very good at. She called me on a time that worked out, and I said, I haven't really been talking about the CREP program that's paying the irrigators to surrender their water right and get paid. Before that surrender, that water right was not going to be mandatory. Then they recently said, well, that it will have to be mandatory, and some of the people in the house said, that's kind of a change. Trust gets reduced when you change something like that. So anyway, this conversation, I told her I haven't really been talking to irrigators about the specific CREP program because it was still being developed, but I said I would suspect just the finality of surrendering your water right, even if there's not much future for you to be able to use it in the current scenario, it's still a big ask, because the value of your land is the ability to have water is vital to the value of your land, and the government always changes its on its word anyway. I said,
That's
I know
why
that
the CREP program, there's a request, because in previous CREP programs, grazing was not an option. But in the last farm bill, it became an option. And so the request, and I said, this is the only way we'll do a CREP program here, is that if those lands go into grazing lands, that we do not leave them idle. So there's got to be, yes, we know that there has to be a reduction in groundwater, but we're also saying instead of just surrendering those water rights, that stock wells have to be able to be put in place. So we're not just capping wells, we're allowing them to become stock wells so that grazing can take place and you have a water source, because otherwise if you just cap a well and then say, oh, we're going to graze it, where does water come from?
I know, and if their word was always good, it'd be great, but you know what I mean?
Well,
it's like,
getting the
okay, but
state
then at the
to
end,
sign
the
on
yank
the
out.
funding is going to be challenging at this point.
And I don't think, one of the things that I've been very cautious about over the years, when Harmony at a couple of meetings years ago said, well, we'll be looking for the county to administer, oversee, manage, that people are doing what, or not doing what they're supposed to. And I always piped up at those meetings and said, the county doesn't have the capacity nor the role to do that, and we will not be doing that. And I remember at the time, that was like a real downer statement. Everybody got really quiet, and Mark Owens was present, and someone said, "Mark, do you have anything to say?" And I was waiting for him to disagree with me, and he said, "I agree with Commissioner Darrow," but that was a long time ago now. And she and I did not end up talking about that, but after my conversation with her, and I kept thinking about things that were shared and spoken about, I thought, I'm gonna talk to a few more irrigators, and people who haven't been that involved in the process, and they said, well, I'd have to hear a lot more, but they said, when is the state going to pay the price of their mistake? Their mistakes for years that we are now suffering for. When are they gonna pay the people they're cutting the water off to, instead of spending all this money on these hundreds of thousands of dollars of, place-based planning, and then they're just gonna regulate. And I did tell Harney, I said, the trust and the transparency has to be there in this. I said, I as an elected official am totally going to be transparent about everything. I'm not going to hold back and not say something for a while because they can't handle it. I'm going to tell them everything I know at any given time, every step of the way. And it's going to be a huge thing when the state starts doing things. So she said, oh no, that's what you should do. And I said, well, that's what I'm going to do, even if it seems blunt or curt. And I don't know, I felt really not comfortable about the conversation because I said that Water Resources Department needs to be able to let all of the water rights people know where they fall into, even though you say they can look it up on your, system, and they should be able to figure out, you guys need to make it easy for everyone to know who's gonna get shut off first phase, second phase, third phase, so they can plan their life. And she said, oh, we will.
When?
So I don't think they will, but
It's the when.
So
You talk.
yeah, I was pretty sobered at the end of the conversation with her.
I've had multiple conversations with Holly, the coordinator for it, and I've been very blunt with her about some of the problems. I'm like, Holly, you don't live here for one reason, and so I don't know if you're just unaware of some of these issues, and if you are, that's fine, but you need to understand them. I said, maybe Brenda and Mark and some of them haven't told you about them, but I'm gonna tell you about them. So, but there's just a lot of distrust right now with OWRD, and I said, when we're in these meetings, I said, Patty and I both look on the screen and count up who's being paid to be in these meetings and who isn't. And I said, everybody goes, everybody knows what's going on, it's their fault, they're not in the room. So this process has worn our community down, people have disengaged. This is unacceptable, and it's not our community's fault they're not in the room. I said, we feel as a community that we're the puppet. And that OWRD is just playing the collaborative as a little puppet. And I said, I want to know what their intent is. And I said, and if you think we're touching surface water without an intent from OWRD of knowing what they want out of the surface water discussion, we won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I said, we already do so much in this community, in this area with surface water and improvements and working with our agencies and doing projects. I said, what more is it that we are supposed to do that we aren't already doing or that isn't already known? I said, this isn't one of those discussions where we're going to be 5 years in the surface water too. I said, that ain't happening. Well, Pete, I'd like to hear, I know over the years occasionally you and I had a very brief little exchange, and you seemed to agree with what I was saying on the county will not be burdened with an unfunded mandate to manage water. The state, they want all the authority, and then they want to put all the...
They want to mess it up, and they want us to fix it.
They want us to do enforcement? No. No, no.
Speaking of water, there's one other thing. Mosquito control. City of Hines and City of Burns are both talking with the guy on the
Do they know we live in a swamp?
They're both talking to this guy.
They are surrounded by a floodplain.
Yeah. So purple is Burns,
Okay,
and Burns is responsible for Burns cost.
okay,
The green is Hines,
okay.
and the red, I think, is what he's saying he thinks the county should do. Which goes way out towards Green Hall, up
We're not
Sylvie's.
taking care of Tony and everybody else's problem.
So this is his first,
Tony's house is the only one near the Grange Hall.
yeah. So this is his first, yeah, he wants to come talk to me. And that's fine, it's not gonna make a lot of sense to have the two cities do it when the water sits in the county. So I think we need to be involved somewhat
Yeah, we
too.
need to be involved.
To me,
but-
what's along the river area, I mean, that's huge, that's nothing I expected.
Well, and you're not gonna control them when we have this much standing water and it varies from the river. I mean, we are on a floodplain because,
So he's coming to give me to talk to me next Wednesday. He's giving me a report, I'll report to you guys.
Okay.
The bottom line is $24,000 for the county if we wanna do this. He doesn't buy drones, he doesn't buy fogging, he doesn't buy, he meets with everybody, he has public meetings, so they know what the chemicals are. He included all that in his email. I think, I know the cities are doing it, we've gotta at least address it. We don't do it, but I think we need to have the conversation.
I'm pretty ignorant on all that, I don't.
We had the one gal with
There's
West
no
Nile,
problems.
that
Oh,
got
we-
West Nile bid
we're in the swamp.
2 years ago. Does that go clear?
Does it go down to 205? So we're from the Grange Hall.
There's the fairgrounds. It's close, you're right.
Because we're on the east fork.
So that was good. Highway, great highways, you're right. It goes towards you, it doesn't get to you. But anyway, I told him, I said, it's not budgeted. You know, we could possibly budget something into next year, he starts in June anyway, so.
Well,
It's a conversation.
it's
Yeah.
where we live. We live in a floodplain. There's just, sometimes there's a reality check. We're not Boise, we're not somewhere else. And, you know, people live in this county, there's gotta be a little bit of ownership of where you live.
They used to
The
spray here,
conditions,
they used to
you know.
spray here years ago.
Yeah.
I think
Everybody
I think a lot of the
uses it.
pressure's coming from downtown merchants. You can't sit outside in the evenings, early summer.
What about the environmentalists and the ecosystems?
He addresses all that.
Okay.
So,
All right.
he's been
A
around.
lot of what they're spraying now isn't as good as the old stuff.
Doesn't work in other
They
words.
eat. So, anyway, I'll send that to you when I meet with him. Then we can talk about it.
We tried spraying during the cutting, and we bought a fogger and everything, because all the cutters came, and all the horses swallowed all these welts for the mosquitoes, and so we sprayed during events and fog. You can't fog enough. It's just where you live. We tried it 2
Buy more
years,
bats.
and
Bats.
you couldn't tell you fog ever, you know.
That's good.
I
Maybe I'll
mean,
meet
we've
with him.
attempted it.
I'll hear his part. I'll tell him
Yeah, I mean, we bought a fogger, we paid somebody to sit there every night and go fog the place and fog the place for 4 straight days.
that. What could shots do too? Aerial.
Well, we were gonna have shots fly it on, but it was too windy for them to do that year, so we just mounted a fogger on the back of the truck and drove it over.
We had the one gal Hines got bit at West Nile 2 summers ago.
We've had people, I mean, Dick and Carolyn's son got bit, Dick and Carolyn Wood, I don't know. You remember them? Dick was a vacation line, their son got bit and got West Nile. I've had horses get West Nile.
I think Hines was bit like something. They're costing $8. I don't know. I think Hines, well, it was in the paper. Hines, I think, accepted it. Burned it. Counties, But if you don't treat where the water's at,
Well, it's hard
you're
to
not gonna
get
make a dent in the problem.
long-term application, and that is the heaviest part. your depth
Sounds like it does it like.
where the river is. I mean, it's just, you have just so much standing water year-round because Tony is able to control that year-round and reflood and reflood and reflood.
He's willing, and I think we talked about him zooming into the meeting on the 17th of last week too, so.
I mean, it'd be one thing if you were gonna remove the standing water and then
Gotta do
just
that.
spray what was left, but they keep reapplying water right next to town, and so there's no way you're going to ever get ahead of that when you always have a reapplication of water.
We come there too.
We'll hear from you at that time.
It's just the nature of the beast. Lots of bug spray, or like my husband, he's like a ninja mosquito net.
Is it?
Yeah, he does.
They don't bother me.
Well-
I give a little bump.
I don't think I've gotten bit by mosquitoes since I moved here.
Yeah, we get bit.
But back east, it goes all the time, you know.
We spray our horses.
You're living right.
Yeah.
You
And
must not have the type of
we
blood.
live on the, we live on the high
spot.
ground, and we're dry, getting drier. Let's see, so Pete, the Blues Intergovernmental Council socioeconomic stuff, Harney County is one of the first 3 of the counties that's gonna get a draft socioeconomic analysis. And, Kristen, myself, I'm gonna invite Susan Doverspike, Tony Stakehart, and
I
maybe
didn't
someone
get
else.
any takers from the NRAD.
Okay.
I did throw it out to them last night. I'm wondering if Denise or somebody would maybe.
Anyway, we're looking for some people who will be able to look at the draft and be on a Zoom meeting, or be on a Zoom meeting, look at the draft, and then if they, just so it's not just the few people from Harney County on the BIC that are the only ones who really looked at the analysis. And I'd be happy to include you in the Zoom if you want to be, or at least shoot you the
It's
draft
good
when it comes out.
information that they came up with. I'm happy with the work they've done so far.
So, anyway, at least we got something out of the day, Vic.
No, it's good information for us.
Patty
got right on it. We're like, we're one
I know,
of the first
someone-
3 counties.
I know, at the last meeting, someone goes, who's selected the counties? And I'm sitting thinking, let's hear what they say. And they said, well, it was just decided, you know. And I was thinking, yeah, it's because I said, we never get anything.
We will adjourn at 11:56.
Okay, good. You got a new Zoom.
Zoom, zoom.
1:30 something, I can't remember.
Oh.
Stop. Stop.
Your knowledge in agriculture.
Yeah.
and stuff is just